Taking care of Kate is your job.
Huh? I'll do it, but shouldn't you help out too?
You are both girls, so you should be the one to do it. I'm busy with work and don't have the time.
But I think Kate will feel lonely. I am Hannah, a 33-year-old working mother. I lead a busy life, juggling work and home responsibilities every day. My husband Tony and I first met at the company we both worked for, where he was my supervisor. Our relationship developed unexpectedly, and we got married 3 years ago. He's actually divorced, and has a child named Kate, who is currently in her final year of elementary school. I knew about her before our marriage, and I made sure to get her approval before we got married, gradually building our relationship. At first, I worried about whether she would like me, and if I could handle being a stepmother to an elementary schooler. But Kate quickly became attached to me. I don't know the details of how Tony gained custody, but I think there must have been some issue between him and his ex-wife. I felt that Kate was craving a mother figure. Since Tony didn't like to talk about it, I didn't ask him about it either. But I vowed to my best not to make her feel lonely and went ahead with the marriage. After getting married, I continued to work while also taking care of Kate. I switched to a part-time schedule to avoid making her feel lonely, helping her with homework and providing advice for her adolescent issues. Although I'm still far from being a true mother figure, Kate and I have deepened our bond as sisters. However, my relationship with Tony gradually grew cold. After our marriage, he didn't take care of Kate at all, and our life together wasn't what I had imagined. He never cooked or even talked to her. So I asked her how they managed before I came into the picture. She said she did most of the housework, and when Tony couldn't cook, he would leave money on the table for her to buy food from the convenience store. I was surprised because I thought he took good care of her based on what he told me before we got married. I thought maybe this is just how single fathers are, and I decided to do my best to take care of Kate as a mother figure without making her feel deprived. But Tony never showed any appreciation for my efforts, and he left all of Kate's care to me while he became increasingly busy with work, staying out late and going on business trips. Our conversations dwindled, and now, 3 years later, we barely talk at all. Amidst all of this, Kate's elementary school graduation is approaching. I told Tony about the graduation ceremony weeks in advance, but at the last minute, he announced he had a business trip scheduled for that day.
I'll be on a business trip, so gotta go by yourself.
I was surprised and replied, "A business trip? It's Kate's graduation. It's so important. Can you ask someone to cover for you?" But he decided to go on the trip, saying it is for work. The next day, I told Kate about this, and she replied with a resigned okay. On the day of the graduation ceremony, I went alone. My relationship with Kate was still short at 3 years, but I was so moved that my eyes turned red by the end of the ceremony. She teased me about it, and we laughed together on our way home. That night, since Tony wasn't coming back from his trip, I made Kate's favorite fried chicken, and we spent a relaxing evening together. At around 10 p.m., just as I was thinking about going to bed, I received a call from an unknown number. "Hello?" When I answered, it turned out to be a call from a hospital. "Your husband and his companion have been in a serious car accident. Can you come to the hospital right away?" My mind went blank in an instant. I frantically asked for the hospital's location, and they said Tony, who was supposed to be on a business trip in San Francisco, was in the hospital in Napa. Confused, but knowing that it was within taxi distance, I left Katie with my in-laws and headed for the hospital. During the taxi ride, my mind raced with questions. Why was he in Napa? Who was the companion? How severe was the injuries? Upon arriving at the hospital, I saw Tony lying in a bed in the intensive care unit, and in the next bed, the receptionist from our company whom I recognized. In an instant, I understood the situation. He had been having an affair. I had never suspected him of cheating before, so I was stunned by the shock. There was no other explanation for the situation. He had lied to me about the business trip, and actually was on a getaway with his lover. All his previous claims about working late and going on business trips were probably lies. Since both Tony and the woman were unconscious, I decided to wait until they woke up and could talk. It took about a week for their unconsciousness to return, and during that time, the doctor informed me that Tony had become hemiplegic due to the after effects of the accident, and the woman had sustained a large scar on her face. While both of them were seriously injured, I felt no sympathy. I thought this was the price they had to pay for betraying me. A few more weeks passed, and they were finally moved to a general ward where I could have a proper conversation with them. I decided to confront Tony about the affair. Were you having an affair? That woman is the receptionist from our company, right? To my surprise, he denied it.
No, it's not like that.
I was expecting him to admit to the affair and apologize, so his reaction was startling. Wait, then why were you in Napa? You said you were going on a business trip to San Francisco, he replied.
Did I? I don't remember. I must have said so by mistake, I guess.
Of course. I couldn't accept the explanation. So why were you with the receptionist? There was no need to bring her on a business trip. Right, he smoothly replied, as if he had prepared an excuse.
It was just a coincidence. When I went to Napa for a trip, she happened to be there too, so we decided to have dinner together. Then the taxi we were in on the way back got into an accident.
His explanation was quite far-fetched. However, I had no evidence to call it a lie, nor did I have any proof that he was cheating. No matter how much I pressed him about the affair, he refused to admit it, and instead seemed to be doubling down on his denial. I was dumbfounded. He must know that his excuse is hard to believe. However, he won't admit to anything unless there is evidence. Frustrated, I told him, "If you won't tell me the truth, I can't continue our marriage. I thought I would consider it if you admitted and apologized." I told him that I was prepared for a divorce. Then his face turned angry.
You are a heartless woman. Or are you planning to abandon your husband now that he is paralyzed?
He attacked me as if I were a bad guy. I couldn't say anything and just stood there. He continued,
"I'll tell everyone at work. They will all look down on you when they find out what a terrible person you are."
It seemed like he was threatening me, and I thought that if I insisted on a divorce now, it would put me at a disadvantage. So I decided to hold off the divorce for the time being. I could gather evidence of his affair and then confront him with it. Since I no longer had any love for him, I decided to continue our marriage as a preparation period to secure favorable divorce terms.
All right, you really weren't cheating.
I believe you. He smirked and said,
"You're my wife, so take care of me for the rest of your life."
I shuddered at his smug expression. I had to gather evidence as soon as possible and finalize the divorce, or I would be forced to take care of this man for the rest of my life. With these thoughts, I brought him home after he was discharged from the hospital, and our life of reluctantly providing care began. He is still in rehabilitation, so he is considered on a leave of absence. Our company has good welfare benefits, so they are letting him take a leave of absence without firing him, allowing him to return once he's recovered. On the other hand, the woman he was with had some scars on her face, but no lasting after effects, and she has already been discharged from the hospital and returned to work. She is working as if nothing had happened regarding her alleged affair with him. I see her every day when I go to the office, and she greets me with a cheerful smile without showing any remorse. Both of them continue to deny the affair and maintain that their meeting was a coincidence, and they just happened to be in the accident together. When I see her enjoying herself without any care, anger wells up inside me, but I hold it in. Once I gather evidence, I can divorce him and hold her accountable as well. Until then, I have no choice but to endure. Although I have decided to divorce him, I am worried about Kate. Her father, Tony, is now paralyzed on one side of his body. He can't take a bath or go to the toilet without assistance. It's difficult for him to cook and do laundry on his own since he is basically living in a wheelchair. If I divorce him, Kate will have to take care of him. I can't let my precious daughter do that. To prevent that, I decided to ask my in-laws to help with caregiving as soon as possible. I was hesitant to ask the elderly couple to take care of Tony, but they love him dearly and were willing to help. I thought that with their help, Kate's burden would be significantly reduced. Although they knew the circumstances behind Tony's severe injury, they believed his explanation and thought that he had no relationship with the woman and that it was just a business trip. Naturally, they didn't express gratitude for my caregiving and instead complained about how I was doing it wrong. I was exhausted every day from work, caregiving, and taking care of Kate. This lifestyle continued for half a year. During that time, I had been gathering evidence of Tony's affair, but the two of them were cautious and didn't leave any traces. Even when I secretly checked his phone, there were no conversations left. None of his colleagues at work knew about their affair, and I was at a loss. Just when I began to think that maybe he wasn't having an affair after all, I received a call from a certain person. After hearing that person's story, the situation changed dramatically. From there, his lies unraveled one after another. After gathering all the evidence, I decided to have a talk with Tony and my in-laws. I have something to discuss, Tony. I'd like your parents to listen as well. When I started the conversation, he looked annoyed and said, "What? I'm not feeling well, so I'd like to finish this quickly. It's so inconvenient with this body. Your caregiving isn't great either." He never forgot to make sarcastic comments like that to me. But today, I didn't care about such remarks. "Please, divorce me," I said, thrusting the divorce papers at him. He laughed and said, "As I told you, if you divorce me now, you'll be the worst wife who abandoned her paralyzed husband. Are you okay with having that label? Everyone at work will despise you." He spat out that line as if he thought it would make me change my mind. But things wouldn't go as he said. I had invited a certain person for this day. "Mandy, please come in." The person who entered the living room was his ex-wife, Mandy. She was the one who had contacted me a few weeks before. Apparently, she had asked Kate for my contact information and had reached out to me to share some crucial information. She told me everything. "It seems you were cheating on her with that woman." even while you were married to her. You've been continuing the relationship, haven't you? I said. And his face, as well as his parents, turned pale, and they fell silent. What I heard from Mandy was that Tony had cheated on her with that woman, even during his previous marriage. Mandy confronted him and pushed for divorce, but he refused. She wanted to divorce him but couldn't, and he even began to mentally abuse her, causing her mental health to deteriorate. While she was recuperating at her parents' house, he filed for divorce on his own and took custody of Kate, citing Mandy's mental state. Mandy had been begging Tony to return Kate to her, but he thought being a single father would make him more attractive, so he treated her like an accessory and refused to let her go. And I was deceived by him and ended up marrying him. Of course, his relationship with that woman continued even after our marriage, and I was living a married life without knowing anything. Mandy's mental state improved after the divorce, and she now lives a normal life without any issues. She had been investigating his downfall to get Kate back from him. She had several photos proving his ongoing relationship with that receptionist and gave them to me. I got hold of those photos as evidence, so I decided to confront him about the divorce today. These photos are the evidence. Mandy took them. At this, he angrily turned red and snapped at Mandy.
Are you meddling? Are you stalking me? Do you still have feelings for me? You're disgusting.
She calmly replied. I just want Kate back. You're too busy playing with this woman and not taking care of Kate at all. Please return her to me quickly. But he refused, saying,
I won't let her go. Having her around raises my reputation at work and makes me more attractive to women.
I asked him, then why did you marry me? If you want to be popular with women, you don't need to get married. He then spewed out the most despicable words.
You are a housekeeper. I just wanted you to do housework and take care of Kate. That way, I'm free, and I can play with her too. She doesn't like kids, so she won't play with me if I have a child.
I was speechless at his utterly disgusting thoughts, as I didn't think he could be such a low person. Mandy and I looked at him with contempt, and his parents anxiously said,
Don't blame Tony. He's currently half paralyzed. It's terrible to gang up on him.
When his mother said this, Mandy looked at her coldly and said, You knew about his affairs too. You defended him even though you knew. You are also responsible for driving me to the edge mentally. In fact, his parents knew about his infidelity. They had been protecting him while keeping silent about his affair with the same woman during both Mandy's and my marriages. I have heard this from Mandy, so I called them here today. After talking up to that point, I pushed the divorce papers at Tony again. You'll divorce me, right? You were the one who cheated, and you married me intending to use me. I'll make you pay a lot of consolation money. He hung his head and didn't say anything. There is no way he can deny it with the photos as evidence. I made him sign the divorce papers and left his parents' house with Mandy. He and his parents reluctantly agreed to the divorce and tried to reconcile us, but I had no intention of doing so. On our way out, I told his parents, Please take care of your precious son for the rest of your lives. They looked at me with despair, but it was their own doing. I felt relieved after saying what I wanted to say. After that, Mandy was able to regain custody of Kate through the proper legal procedures. I am grateful that Kate gave Mandy my contact information at that time. And even now, I occasionally maintain a friendly relationship with Kate as a neighborly older sister figure. Mandy looks happy and lively now that she has Kate back in her life. On the other hand, my divorce with Tony was finalized. I was able to claim and receive a lump sum payment for alimony for both him and his mistress. It was revealed to his company that he had been having an affair, which led to the dismissal of the woman. Tony, who had been on leave at the time, had falsely claimed to be on a business trip while going on a vacation with the female employee, which led him to being forced to resign voluntarily, eventually leaving his job. I have continued work at the same company ever since. My colleagues have all sympathized with me and encouraged me. Having had enough of men for now, I plan to focus on my work for a while. Next time, I want to work on improving myself so that I can meet a sincere man.
Why? What's going on here?
My husband spoke to my father with a surprised expression that I had never seen before.
I said exactly what I meant. And as if for you, Mike, it's time for you to leave the company.
I was watching this chaotic situation with a feeling that all the struggles I had gone through were finally paying off. My name is Rebecca, a 35 years old housewife. I have a 12-year-old daughter named Pearl, who is going through a sensitive phase right now. Although we sometimes clash, we also have many moments when she helps with household chores and our parent-child relationship is good. I was born to my parents, who owned a small trading company. After graduating from high school and junior college, I started working at an advertising agency. I intended to take over my parents' company someday, but I deliberately chose a general company to gain work experience first. I met my husband Mike at a group blind date. He was bright, talkative, and always cheered everyone up. I was rather shy and was attracted to his charm that I didn't have. Moreover, he was highly educated, graduated from a famous university, and was an elite businessman at a famous company at that time. I was swept off my feet by his intense approach, and we got married without any trouble. After we got married, he became the executive officer to take over my father's company, and I supported our family at home. The company was doing well, and he was expected to become the president eventually. However, things changed around the time when our daughter Pearl was born. It was my first time raising a child. I was busy taking care of her day and night. The days without sleep continued when she started to cry at night. My husband was cold to me as I struggled every day to take care of my daughter, with dark circles under my eyes.
What's with that horrible look on your face? You were already finished as a woman.
One day, I became furious at my husband's heartless remark, and we got into an argument. You could at least participate a little. You don't help at all. Just saying you have work every day.
That's because I'm being used by someone's father, isn't it? Don't blame others, you fatso.
I was about to throw the bowl I had in my hand at my husband, but I snapped out of it when Pearl started crying. After this argument, my relationship with my husband became increasingly strained. Instead of helping with household chores and childcare, he started leaving the house for work more and more often. I had a vague feeling that it wasn't really work he was going to. The reason I didn't divorce him at the time was solely for my daughter's sake. I also didn't want to worry my parents. When my husband was at home, he always locked himself in his room and never came out. In addition, he started harassing me at some point.
Here, this is the monthly living expenses.
My husband handed me only $600 and said calmly with a mean smile in response to my angry reaction. "What? You expect me to live on this for a month?"
You're not working, so try to manage with this.
With a child, we couldn't even cover our food expenses with just this much. I managed to get by with the savings I had accumulated during my single days. Such situations continued frequently, but my husband was only good on the surface. He always acted like a good employee and husband in front of my parents and other colleagues. One day, at my wit's end, I tried to talk to my parents about my husband, but he always showed a kind and reliable side in front of them, so they didn't believe me. In fact, they ended up scolding me, saying that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. I struggled with housework and child rearing in isolation. By the time Pearl became an elementary school student, I started helping my parents' company. However, the work was extremely hard. My husband always went out saying he was on a business trip and left me alone to do his share of the work. I worked hard without complaining for my daughter's sake and to avoid worrying my parents. As time passed and Pearl became a middle school student, a small conflict arose in our home. Pearl had finally witnessed my husband's infidelity. I had already been disappointed in my husband for quite some time and had noticed the presence of the other woman here and there. However, I couldn't be sure because of my concern for my daughter, and I had always let it go. But one day, Pearl saw her father walking with another woman in the shopping mall. When she came home, she immediately asked her father, "Dad, who is that person?" "The woman you were walking with in the mall," my husband answered without showing any remorse.
She's one of my friends.
"Really? Is she really just a friend?" And my husband suddenly raised his voice.
If I say she is my friend, then she's my friend. Don't you interfere in adults' affairs.
When my husband slammed his hand on the table, our daughter flinched. "Mom, please don't wash Dad's clothes with mine," my daughter said to me before going to her room.
I'm going to be the president of this company. It's natural to have one or two women.
I was dumbfounded by my husband's frank admission of infidelity. From that day on, the number of times I had to run the washing machines increased, even though I was already busy. In the midst of this, it was decided that the company's 20th anniversary events would be held. My husband continued to be absent from home, citing work. He even ordered me like this.
You're going to be in charge of this anniversary event. Got it? If you embarrass me, I won't tolerate it.
He pushed all the responsibility for organizing the anniversary event onto me. My workload became even more difficult than before. Fortunately, the staff helped me, but I still had to work until late at night every day. One day, I finished work as usual and started doing housework. As I was about to sit down to eat dinner with my daughter, everything went blank. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. My body had finally given out. My parents and my daughter and parents looked at me with concern. "Mom, are you okay? The doctor said it's overwork." "I can't get Dad on the phone. I've called him dozen times already." "I see. Maybe your dad must be busy." Just then, a phone call came in from my husband.
What are you slacking off for? What are you going to do if it affects the event? Can you take responsibility for taking time off, huh?
He berated me and then abruptly hung up the phone. I didn't feel anything anymore. He was just a stranger hiding behind a husband's mask. Then I realized tears were streaming down my face. My daughter noticed and asked, "Mom, what's wrong? Did Dad say something terrible again?" Seeing the worried look of me and my daughter, my parents asked,
Rebecca, what's going on?
I didn't feel the need to hide anything and told my parents everything that had been going on for years. That my husband has been neglecting our family, not doing his job, and being cruel to my daughter. And nobody understands my pain. My parents listened quietly until I finished. Then they apologized to me.
I'm sorry, Rebecca. I didn't realize you were suffering that much. Please tell us anything you need from now on, okay? We'll always be on your side.
My father continued.
The event is also ready to go. We can leave the rest of the other stuff.
I decided to take my parents' words, and at the same time, I made up my mind to settle things with my husband for his mistreatment of me. I hired a private detective, and evidence of my husband's infidelity was quickly found. Furthermore, it was revealed that his business trips, which he claimed were for work, were actually just an excuse. Through his patterns of behavior and receipts, we were able to gather a large amount of solid evidence. I also consulted a lawyer and made sure to understand the maximum amount of compensation I could receive. I planned to demand compensation for not only his affair, but also the damages he caused to his company with his fake business trips. I showed all the evidence I had collected to my parents. After they were shocked, they became furious.
He deserves to pay for what he's done.
I decided to fight my husband for divorce, but my father told me something as the event was approaching next week.
Rebecca, I understand that you want to divorce him as soon as possible. However, please bear with me a little. I have an idea.
So, I decided to trust my father and leave it to him. The day of the anniversary event arrived. We welcomed many guests from various places, and it became a grand event. There was even the appearance of the mayor. In such a glamorous setting, my husband was very proud, even though he hadn't done anything himself. After the greetings were over, the reception-style dinner began. I was with my daughter at my parents' table. Then, my husband came over boldly and said to my father with great pride,
"How do you like the party I organized?" "Ah, it's quite something. This party is special, and it's our 20th anniversary, so it has to be exceptional." "Sure, leave it to me."
Upon hearing my husband brown-nosing my father, my daughter chimed in. "Dad, that's all a lie. You didn't do anything. Mom did. Grandpa, he also has a crush on someone else, you know? I saw him with a woman at the mall, and it wasn't Mom." My husband glared at his daughter and said in a low voice,
"Pearl, didn't I tell you before? Don't meddle in grown-up affairs."
With a smirk, he returned to my father and said,
No worries, sir. It's just childish talk. Anyway, about my promotion to CEO. Oh, yes, that? Sure. Wait for the announcement of the new personnel changes after this.
My father, not to be outdone by his son-in-law, also had a creepy smile on his face. It was a pretty strange sight. And as the party entered its final phase, it was finally time for the announcement of the personnel changes by the current president, who happened to be my father. While my husband awaited the announcement with a glass of wine in hand, looking quite pleased with himself, my family and I stared at him as if he were a bitter pill to swallow. He no longer seemed like family to us. Then my father began his speech.
Thank you all for coming to our company's 20th anniversary celebration, despite your busy schedules. Today, I, William Tucker, have decided to retire as president and pass on the torch to my successor.
The room felt silent, waiting for my father's words to sink in. My husband's face was already beaming with a smile, eagerly waiting for the announcement.
I hereby appoint my daughter Rebecca as the new president.
The room erupted into loud applause after the announcement, and I could see the shock and disbelief on my husband's face as he stood there with his mouth hanging open. The party ended without incident, and as we started clearing up, my husband ran over to my father.
Why? What's going on here? I said exactly what I meant. And as if for you, Mike, it's time for you to leave the company.
What? How could this... Why?
You know the reasons better than anyone else.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
This must be Rebecca's doing, isn't it?
He glared at me as he spoke.
Did you say something to your father about this?
What? No, I haven't done anything. I simply told my parents the truth. Then I scattered the documents I had in my hand on the floor. There were numerous photos of my husband's affair and evidence of his fake business trips. My husband's face turned pale as he saw them.
How could you get these? When did you...
While you were away on your business trip, of course. I've gathered all the evidence your infidelity and fake trips, so you can't deny it. Then my father picked up the evidence photos and spoke.
Well, this is how it is. We'll make sure to charge interest on the expense claims for your fake business trips. And as for the cost of your affair, you pay my daughter back. That's for sure.
Wait a minute. Damn it. Rebecca, you... My husband tried to hit me, but a passing guest accidentally tripped him and he fell hard on the floor.
You'll pay for this. Both of you.
Sure. We won't be seeing you anymore anyway. Please contact our lawyer from now on. With that, I handed my husband a business card for a law firm. The security guards, alerted by the commotion, then restrained him and escorted him out of the venue. A few months later, I successfully divorced my husband. After being kicked out of the house, my ex-husband struggled to find a new job. On top of that, he was burdened with a hefty settlement fee. However, I no longer had any connection to his difficulties, as long as he paid me the settlements as agreed. As for myself, I took over my father's company and have been steadily growing its business. My daughter, who has not suffered any damage from the divorce, enjoying a happy student life. To her, it was as if she had never had father in the first place. Mom, when I grow up, I will be a good enough person to be entrusted with this company. She said something so heartwarming. And there was one more happy event for me. I received a second marriage proposal in my life. The person was the one who tripped my ex-husband when he tried to attack me. His name was Hector, and he was the president of one of our company's clients. He was also a divorcee, and we hit it off. As we watched my husband being taken away by the security guard, he said,
A great party was almost ruined by him. It's a good thing that this commotion happened after the party.
Yes, he was really a terrible husband. He cheated, took fake business trips, and as if I had relieved my burden, I somehow blurted out my life story to Hector.
Sounds like you've been through a lot, but looking at your daughter, it's all worth it. You are a good wife and a good mother.
Listening to our conversation, our daughter smiled happily. A few days later, he and our family ran into each other at a nearby cafe. We decided to have coffee together and had a great time with the three of us. That led to us having meals together. Even when my daughter wasn't with us, I realized how great he was each time we spent time together. The cause of his divorce was of his ex-wife's extravagant spending. We had been friends for a while, but one day he said to me,
I'd like to get to know each other better, if that's okay with you. Would you consider officially dating me? Oh, of course. I mean, if I can get Pearl's permission.
My daughter, who was beside us, immediately answered, Of course. That's a no-brainer. And things went smoothly like that, and we got married for the second time. Our married life is wonderful. My daughter no longer got angry when I washed the laundry altogether. Hector seemed to be fulfilling every wish that my daughter had, and she began to feel as if she was his daughter from the beginning. Mom, Dad, I want a baby sister. Given my age, it would be difficult to get pregnant. So, we decided to adopt a kitten as a solution. My daughter fell in love with a kitten at an animal shelter adoption event. We named her Cleo, and my daughter took care of her as if she were a real sister. I think I finally have a real family. Let's do our best to nurture this family with my beloved husband and the kitten. That's what I vowed in my heart.